Rick Grenell is joining us, of course, Senior Advisor for Global Affairs and National Security. Rick, there's a very troubling piece that CNN just put out. It's not shocking, but it is horrific, and I cannot even imagine what these parents are going through. But in Afghanistan, citizens of Afghanistan have let it be known that the Taliban are mandating, under threat of death, of course, that young girls be sold to them. And this, of course, was a practice before and now is a practice again. And this is part of this failed way in which we disengaged. Your thought? I mean, it's horrific. There's nothing, I mean, it's just horrible.
Well, it's horrific, and it's a return to what they used to do, their tactics of old. And now that the Taliban is in charge, we need to be very clear-eyed that this is not an international group that needs to be recognized. We see, Jay, already that the Europeans are making moves to tell the Biden administration to recognize the Taliban, to treat them like a legitimate government. Now, they've taken over the government, but they are not a legitimate government, and we should never recognize them, no matter what the pressure is like from the Europeans or the Russians or the Chinese. This is the thing that the Biden administration always tries to do, which is build consensus. They want to have all of the international partners agree. And so what they tend to do is give in to the rest of the group, and it becomes the lowest common denominator of what the entire global group believes. We should stand strong. We should put America first, and we should reject this idea that recognizing the Taliban is somehow going to help us. Look what they're doing to little girls. There are families who are selling their children in order to eat. Where is the United Nations? Billions and billions of dollars have been spent to help this country, and yet, under the Biden regime, we are dialing it back and going back to slavery for little girls and sales of human lives in order to eat. This is atrocious.
Yeah, it really is. So the president's on the world stage today. And, you know, Rick, you've been on the world stage. You not only were the director of national intelligence and at the UN for a decade, but you also were the U.S. ambassador to Germany. I want your sense of how this is going. I mean, their whole idea was the United States is back. We're on the world, you know, we're the leader, you know, well, they don't ever say leader because that's a negative word for them. But the United States is back. We're going to get into the Paris Climate Accords. They're bragging about all of this. Meanwhile, India just said, I think, that they cannot get to their carbon numbers until like 2075 or something. But what's your sense of where it is right now?
So I hate to do this, but I have to get a little philosophical for a second, because the one thing I learned at the UN, Jay, is that countries believe that they're equal on the international stage. And so what the G20 and all of the members of the UN climate change group believe is that America is just one of many, and that we should be treated just like everybody else, except for the fact that they want us to write a big check. I actually believe people are equal, not countries. And so it's really important that we stand on the world stage and say, no, that is not a good policy for the American people. We should not apologize for standing up for America. Joe Biden is not the president of the world. He's not in charge of the global system. He is the president of the United States. And there is a case to be made that what is best for America is best for the world, because we are the country unapologetically that values human rights, democracy, the rule of law. When we are in charge, other countries benefit because the rules are always about the humanity and finding ways to have capitalism strengthen everyone.
No, I think that's a very important point. And this leading from behind, which was kind of like Obama's way of doing it, did not serve our interests well. I mean, you look at it across the globe. I'm worried about the Middle East. We've talked about that before. I want to go back to the situation, though, with China, because, you know, Rick, if you were going to name the big three right now, and I know we do this about every 3 months, we kind of reevaluate where we are in the world. What are the big three dangers for the United States, country-wise?
Well, China's number one, and their secret ways are, I'm afraid to say this, are duping all of Washington. I think Iran and its pursuit of nuclear weapons is the second issue. And then I would put into the camp on third of global terrorism, terrorist groups, Hezbollah, certainly what's happening in Afghanistan with the Taliban.
Yeah. So, the reason I brought it up, everyone, is that we are constantly reevaluating, because this is the positions we advocate then at the United Nations, what we think are the major, and it moves, as Rick just said. I mean, you've got part of responding is responding to what's happening actually on the ground that you're having to deal with. Now, and we do that through our advocacy at the United Nations. We do that in our advocacy in international tribunals. So, I mean, we've been there, we've done it, we continue to do it. The concern, of course, that you have right now, and Rick, I want to get your view on this. We've got, you just went through a governor's recall election in California. Now, of course, tonight is the race in Virginia. It is, surprisingly, I think, to many of us, it's very close. There was a lot of early voting, so we don't know how that's going to play in. But the fact of the matter is, the Virginia race ends up becoming a factor much closer, I think, because of an issue of parents' involvement in the school boards. And I want to play that bite again, the longer version of what Terry McAuliffe, former governor of Virginia, said about parents' involvement in their kids' own education, which to me, this is shocking to me.
Parents had to write to veto books, Glenn, not to be knowledgeable about it, also take them off the shelves. And I'm not going to let parents come into schools and actually take books out and make their own decision.
You vetoed it.
So, yeah, I stopped the bill that I don't think parents should be telling schools what they should teach.
I don't think parents should be telling the schools what they should be teaching their kids. I mean, Rick, I'm trying to figure out, we had a good caller on this. Who would agree with that position, right, left, or center? And people applauded.
Look, I think our teachers are begging for more involvement from parents so that they don't have to be the ones who try to teach and educate and discipline for only the period of time you're in school, and then they go home and there's chaos because there's no leadership. Teachers have been very clear about wanting parents to be involved all the way through so that all of the responsibility doesn't fall on them. Everybody knows teachers that are good teachers. Yes. Who are not getting the support from the principal, from the unions, and from parents. Let's be very clear about that.
Yeah, what's
I do want to say one thing. It's very important.
No, please.
It's very important to get out and vote. And I'm just struck with how ACLJ here is giving us, the latest in Virginia, giving you news to use. But we just talked about some really important issues where ACLJ around the world is one of the very few voices to stand up. So I just have to take this time for a second and encourage people to sign on and give and support us, because one of the reasons I joined ACLJ is because they are one of the very few sane conservative voices on the world stage. Right now with Joe Biden over Glasgow at the G20 in Rome, when we see him on the world stage, nothing reminds me more of having a strong ACLJ around the world, and we need your support. Obviously, you're going to get the news in Virginia and some other topics, right. But these are issues that are unique to ACLJ, and I hope that they'll support us.
Well, Rick, I appreciate you saying this. This, of course, is the month of November, which for us is the beginning of our last 2 months of what we call our matching challenge, which is literally, following up on Rick said, is literally when you make a donation to our friends that are watching this broadcast now, it's matched by other donors of ours, which is a really big deal. And let me say something. You see us on this set, and you see Rick coming remote, and Mike Pompeo and others that we have, a fan in our D.C. office. I mean, and we've had, offices around from our offices in Europe. All of that, including everybody you don't see behind the scenes here, is because of your support of the ACLJ. So you see us and you get information from us, but I will tell you there are teams here, Washington, Strasbourg, France, all over the globe, Jerusalem, working to defend freedom and liberty globally, to protect human rights and human dignity in Africa. I mean, around the globe, we are here. And I appreciate, Rick, you saying that and reminding our people that are watching this broadcast how important that is. Thank you, as always, Rick. We really appreciate it.